Well, good morning. It's 1:53 p.m. and you are just waking up for the day.
No, I woke up an hour ago.
Oh, because you had to listen through some of the albums
Yeah,
still. I'm
yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I planned it all out.
Oh, perfect, perfect. That's what we need to be doing.
Exactly.
Well, it's oh, I'm glitching. I'm glitching.
Oh no.
Give it a sec. Give it a sec.
I'm not gonna lie, it might be like this for the
Okay,
entirety of it.
because of you or me.
Probably because of the rabbits.
What?
Apparently some rabbits chewed up our Wi-Fi line, so I'm off my hotspot.
Oh, well, that's okay. We'll do our best. We'll do our best with this, and we'll trim out any of the ridiculousness that
Right.
may inevitably occur. Um, we got to have a discussion about this thing because uh, post Donda era, there's just been utter chaos from the
Yeah,
camp of Kanye West,
absolutely.
for no good reason other than he just decided to go on a outrageous tangent for the past 2 years.
Right.
So we're gonna review this Vultures album because it's music and we talk about music. And first of all, it's been ages since we did an album review, so I'm
Yeah,
kind of stoked for this.
really, yeah.
Um, but I want to start by saying this: uh, Kanye West not been a good dude lately. Like we can all get on that page, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah, 100%. Not good.
like we're we're all on board that it's not okay to say these kinds of things, right? And
No.
like we're kind of laughing, but it's not because it's funny, it's because of how ridiculous the guy's been.
Right.
um I've been watching a lot of reviewers on the internet talk about the Vultures album, and in particular, the quote unquote the goat, the OG, Anthony Fantano, has been like just trashing Kanye. Like, you can't listen to this, you can't support the man, we got to be canceling him. And fine if that's his stance. Like, I really,
Right.
that's his prerogative, whatever. However, I just want to say, I think I got to be delicate in how I say this, because there's people out there that are still like bumping the Young Thug project. Young Thug's the GOAT, Young Thug's this, Young Thug's that,
Right.
free Young Thug, everybody's on free Young Thug. We're talking about hate speech and we're talking about murder. Like, let's be consistent here. And so this whole like separate the art from the artist thing, some people are like, oh, but Kanye's talking about it in his music. Young Thug's on trial because and they're using his lyrics from his songs as evidence, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I say all this to say, like, I don't support Kanye, I don't support what he's saying, but we're going to talk about the music and we're going to give it like a real review,
Right.
because that's what we do. And feel however you want about him and about Young Thug. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and that's
Right.
cool, and I support that. But like, we're gonna do a real review is the point.
Right. Dude, it's crazy because besides you, because you were telling me before I even listened to it that, it's kind of all over the place because, it's Kanye. But besides that, all I've heard were great things about this album. Like, I'm looking at my Snapchat story and my Insta story, and all of these people that, have the same kind of music taste as me. They're like, oh, like this is dope, like this is the one, like 100 emojis. And I'm like, okay, okay, like I'm kind of hyped. Let's see what. Plus, like, I heard a couple of leaks from way back when, and that got me stoked. And now here we are.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about all this stuff
Yeah.
because I'm with you. I've heard the two extremes where people are either like, he's back, you can't cancel the GOAT. Like, we're
Yeah.
going number one. And they did go number one. So, like,
Right.
there's that. But,
Yeah.
whatever that means. And then there's like the people that are like, it's unlistenable garbage. He's washed, whatever. So, it's going to be an interesting discussion, I think.
Yeah. Agreed.
Um, and if we start glitching out, just let me know and I'll repeat anything that like I cut
Cool.
out when I say or whatever.
Yep.
But let's start with the production here because this is what Kanye's known for.
Yeah. Um, I will always give flowers to Kanye when it comes to his production every single time. Um, and with this album, I kind of did a little bit of digging. I was just trying to find features, but then this also came up with it. But apparently there are 40 total producers that helped out with this album. Some of the big names being JPEG Mafia, London on the track, Timberland, Wheezy, and then Mbeza, however you say their name, who produced or helped produce Life is Good with Future and Drake. So it's cool to see that many hands kind of be on a single project. But yeah, I always think Kanye brings out the best when it's anything he produces. I didn't really have a problem with anything production wise on this album.
Yeah, I did you rate these out of 10 the
Yeah,
categories? I know
so
we haven't done it for a while, but
I gave production overall a 7. I do think that
okay.
there's way better productions from way like just before this album that he's been a part of. But nonetheless it's still very well produced.
Yeah. I will agree with you. I do think there are some fantastic moments where production shines through on this album. I think there's some super cool, unique sample flips. Particularly the JPEG Mafia beat. Like it's one of those where as soon as it comes on, you're like, this is
Yeah.
JPEG Mafia.
100%.
And honestly, like before I knew that, I had seen that they had linked up or whatever, but just in listening through it the first time, it almost gave me like Suicide Boys vibes on
Hmm.
that track.
Yeah.
And then in going through it, I was like, oh yeah, this is like stylistically reminds me a lot of the JPEG records, and so that was cool. I do think there's some moments where samples shine through on the album,
Hmm.
um, but I honestly think they more frequently detract when they are sampling something that's kind of out there or unique or
Hmm.
outrageous. And the example I'll give is on the song "Back to You." Is it's called
Hmm.
"Back to You," right? With I
Uh,
can't remember who the feature is on, anyways. But anyways, "Back to Me." Sorry, not "Back to You." "Back to Me."
mm.
It's the fifth track on the album, but that sample at the beginning and then Kanye interpolates it throughout the song ruins one of Ty Dolla Sign's best performances of his career. Just utterly ruins what he just spent, this crazy beat drop doing, this
Yeah.
crazy instrumental, and then Kanye just is Kanye and kind of ruins the song and makes it utterly unlistenable garbage. Um, and honestly, I do think on some level it lacks a lot of innovation that made a lot of Kanye albums great.
Yeah.
Because while it is unique and there's some cool stuff from JPEG and there's some cool stuff from all these producers that you're talking about, it doesn't give me like the vibes of when you turn on the College Dropout for the first time and you hear those soul samples and you're like, what the crap is he doing here?
Yeah.
Or you go through Yeezus and you're like, what am I listening to? Or 808s has its own uniqueness to it, and I just think there's so much innovation in what Kanye's done. I do think this one lacks pretty greatly on that front comparatively to what he's done.
Yeah.
And it's hard because he's set the bar so high for himself, so it's hard for me to like knock it when I do think it's better produced than a handful of other great hip hop projects out there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I gave it a 5 because of that stuff. So
That's fair.
yeah. Um, Let's go into vocals because I kind of teased this a little bit in what I just talked about, but I think Ty Dolla Sign sounds great on pretty much the whole project.
Yeah.
Virtually everything he shows up on, I think he sounds as good as he needs to, or as good as he has shown he's able to do in his career. He doesn't really ever phone in the vocals on this album, so to speak. And honestly, Kanye has his moments as well. Like I think of the song "Talkin'" with
Hmm.
where it features Northwest, his daughter, at the
Yeah.
beginning. But Kanye sounds really great at the outro there. He sounds
Hmm.
really cool, and there's a couple of other moments like that. But yet again, I think like going back to the song "Back to Me," what the heck is Kanye doing? It sounds awful.
It's
You go to
terrible.
paid and you're like, what the heck is this flow? Like, why are you doing this staccato? Like, what the heck are you trying to do? Or you go to like a track like Bump, or not Bump. Oh my gosh, I'm having a stroke because I'm so annoyed by this. Vultures with Bump J is what I tried to say. Vultures
Yeah.
with Bump J, right? You go to this song and you're like, do you guys even want to be making music? Like, you sound like a high school student who's being forced to record this song.
Yeah.
Like, just you sound like a kid who doesn't want to be there making music, and you're like, I had a Lamborghini Roadster. Like, what the heck are you doing? It sounds awful.
Yeah. It's really
So, all that being said, Ty Dolla Sign does sound great on every track he's on, and Kanye has some good moments.
right.
While there are a lot of what I feel like is trash, but because of the great moments on it, I gave it a 6 on the vocals.
Yeah. I agree. I think Ty Dolla Sign stayed in his lane. You know, like one of his strongest features is like how he sings and how well he sounds. Um, for me, like Kanye will always have his moments, and I feel this way throughout his career. Um, but that's just not what he's known for. On top of that, he's a rapper. Not many rappers really sing like that or like are too melodic or so I don't really expect much from Kanye when it comes to vocals. But this one was just bad. Like it just wasn't good. It like there were like 4 or 5 songs where I had to like force myself not to skip just so that I can get through the actual album so that I could do this review and like I think I got a headache from this album to be completely honest, but because of how well Ty Dolla Sign did, I also gave it a 6. But Kanye,
Okay,
man,
yeah,
chill out.
yeah, my gosh. I will agree with what you're saying. I don't think it's ever been his strongest suits, though he's proven at sometimes he can be great
Yeah.
at it. Um, but let's jump into the lyrics here because this is a something else entirely. Um, I will be upfront and say there's some lines that I genuinely think are funny or like pretty original.
Hmm.
Like at one point in the album, Kanye's talking about kind of everything that he's going through with the divorce and like being trashed and being canceled and this, that, and the other. I don't really know like if it's mean of me to say this, but it just caught me so off guard that I thought it was kind of funny. He says, I took it on the chin like Jay Leno,
Hmm.
because Jay Leno had like the big thing where he like busted up his jaw and had to get it wired shut. And like, I thought that was like, it caught me so off guard that I was like, that's hilarious. And I don't mean it in like a mean way to Jay Leno because that's a scary thing, but like
Yeah.
just it caught me so off guard. I was like, holy crap, that's
Yeah.
that's funny. Um, and there's a couple like that in the album where I'm like, okay, that's pretty funny. Like,
Yeah.
well said or whatever. But this is the one point in the album where I will say when you're listening through it and like in lieu of everything that uh Kanye has gone through recently with all of his hate speech and all of whatever, it is the one aspect of the album where I'm like, dude, shut up about this. Like you've gotten yourself into this predicament because of all this crap you've been saying. Like, stop talking. Like,
Literally.
you need to know when to shut your mouth. And he doesn't, and he never has. And that's fine. But it's not fine. But whatever is his problem is his
Right.
problem. But like it makes the album like really corny, really cringy, and there is some of that like damaging content that's more damaging than just like what he said on his past albums of like objectifying women and like wanting to chase after drunken hot girls and like,
Yeah.
that's its own issue. And now we're talking about like all this like stuff that's actually kind of, that's a little much. It's a little cringy. The Columbine bar, the, hooking up with Jewish people bar. Like
Yeah.
there's some bars that I'm like, okay, dude, there's a line. I don't really vibe with this. Um, yeah, and part of it is that I feel like with Jesus is King and then with Donda, Kanye really took some interesting steps forward
Hmm.
as a lyricist and as an artist in his storytelling and in what he's trying to say in his music when he's on Hurricane talking about taking responsibility for infidelity and taking responsibility for what has gone on in his marriage, where he's talking about Jesus Lord when he's telling stories about the problems associated with his neighborhood growing up, and then he comes into albums like this and he's just back on the old graduation drunken hot girls grind and anti-Semitism here and objectifying people there and like
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. I gave it a 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I probably should have. I'm cool with what I rated it. Um, before I start anything, this is one of the lyrics off of Problematic, and this was the moment I like. It's towards the end of the album, and I was reading through every single one of the lyrics so that I could get a real good feel and everything. Once I saw this, I was 100% over this album, 100%. Says, "I'm not racist. It's a preference." I said, "No, nope," and we're done.
Yeah,
So that being said, the lyrics were trash, just about all the
yeah,
way around. Like, and I'm not even just talking about Kanye and Ty Dolla Sign, but I'm talking about just about every single feature. Like, the only two features that I think like were perfectly fine were, sadly enough, Northwest and what's this person's name? Um, she's on like the one of the first songs. India Love.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but she killed it. Anyways, not the point. Everybody sucked. So the reason why I gave it a 5 is now unknown to me. Um, but I hated the lyrics. They
yeah,
they're all just
and
super corny, but like not in a really fun way.
yeah, and when we're talking about like the bars that are the most listenable on the album, you're talking about bars where Ty Dolla Sign is literally for like 2 minutes just I'm just here to get paid.
Yeah,
I'm just here to get paid. And you're like, this is the most listenable part of the album lyrically
literally.
so far, and it's garbage.
That song
So,
pissed me off.
I mean, um, yeah. So enough said about lyrics. I've said my piece. Let's talk about concept here because even if you're listening through it and you don't really, I don't know what I was going to say there. There's a little bit of a concept to the album, the whole
Yeah,
concept of vultures and kind of Kanye again being a blackballed artist from the industry, vultures coming to pick apart the remains of what's left for him, like being bankrupt and this, that, and the other.
yeah,
There's all kinds of that stuff going on. But I think this loose narrative for Kanye at this point of being like a canceled artist that's not accepted by the industry and you don't get me and you can cancel me but it doesn't matter, it's really played out by him at this point and it lacks a lot
yeah,
of originality. And honestly just in execution it pales in comparison to like a My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy or a Yay or all these other albums that he's done the same kind of concept on. But you listen to a song like Runaway and you're like, this is beautiful. Like
yeah,
what you did at the VMAs with walking up and taking Taylor Swift's moment, not cool. But like at this point, this is a beautiful song, and like I'm not on your side about it, but I kind of
right.
want to be. Like I kind of wish I was like a supporter of you for this because this is a crazy song. But anyways, I yeah, you listen through a project like that, and there's just all of these unique concept elements that make that storyline so compelling, even when you don't want to support Kanye, is the
Right.
point. Even when you don't want to support him, you're like, this is a beautiful way to say that, or a beautiful execution of a song to portray
Yeah.
what you're talking about in this situation. And this album is just utter garbage in comparison to those concept moments. So honestly, I think this is the worst category I rated it. I gave it a 3 out of 10.
That's fair. I don't know why I feel bad about going like so low for some categories when I know for a fact that these artists will never listen, nor would they care about my opinion alone.
Yeah,
But so I gave Concept a 5. It probably should be lower. But I don't know. I don't really care for the concept. Like at first it's cool, like what you're talking about, like kind of digging at the remains as vultures do and like being kicked out of the industry. Like you could have made that so much cooler than the route you went, especially with like Ty Dolla Sign. I think I don't know. Like it just felt very rushed, kind of like what you said earlier. A majority of it sounds like high schoolers forced to do some kind of stupid project that nobody actually wants to be a part of. Like it
yeah,
I don't know. It just could have been so much better than what it is. And yeah, that's I don't have much to say about the concept.
yeah. I mean, really, what it came down to for me is he's in a different but similar situation at this point right now as he was right before the Dark Twisted Fantasy album,
Mm,
because the music industry was not happy with what he did at the VMAs with the whole Taylor Swift thing, right?
right.
And at this point now, it's a lot worse and a lot different, but like same kind of thing where it's like nobody in the industry besides his cultish fan base really wants to support him all that much.
Yeah.
Um, but is it the first track on the album on Dark Twisted Fantasy? Is it Runaway? I mean, I'm embarrassing myself here, but um,
I have
I
no
think
idea.
it. I think it is. Oh, it's not. It's not. But anyways, Runaway like is this song to me of that moment where you're like, it's this total backhanded apology, right? Like he
Mhm.
comes in and he's saying like, I'm the problem, run away as fast as can. And then the outro, like when you start to understand the outro of Runaway, like that whole auto-tuned guitar thing where he's like, like that whole thing that he's
Yeah.
going on doing. And you're like, holy crap, this is him. Like, this is how he's saying he sounds to the industry. Like, nobody gets him. Nobody understands what he's saying. Like, that to me is like a crazy concept moment for this album. And then you come to this one and you have a song like Carnival and she honorable. You're like, what the heck is even this? Like, in terms of concept, as a song, you can feel however you want about it, but you're like,
Right.
you know, it's not really doing you any favors, is my point.
Right.
Uh, I could talk about that for a long time because I'm pretty disappointed with this album's concept. Um, but let's talk about the features. You kind of hinted at this. You didn't like the features.
No, like quite honestly, there were three features I liked, and I forgot about one when I was talking about it earlier. Being Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs probably had the best verse on the entire album, like hands
100%.
down. Like I think he was the best part of the album. Um, yeah, like everybody sucked. Like Playboy Cardi, I'm not even a fan, but like even then, sucked. Travis Scott sucked. Like all of these people were just garbage except for Northwest, India Love, and Freddie Gibbs. Like it's actually ridiculous. It actually made me so mad. Yeah, no, it wasn't okay. Everyone sucked on this album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I actually said to me this was a stronger area of the album,
Oh,
honestly.
this is one of my lowest ratings with a 4.
Okay.
And if Freddie Gibbs like wasn't on it, I'd probably drop it to like a 2. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I
Yeah, that's
yeah,
crazy.
it was very
I mean,
disappointing to me, especially coming off like Donda. Like You look at
Yeah.
Donda,
Yeah,
what you
for
just
sure.
did, and you have all these like people with Don Tolliver coming in out of nowhere with one of the most beautiful things he's ever done. And like just all of these people just
Yep.
balling out. And then you look at this and you're like, well, I just heard some great stuff from Travis off Utopia. What are you
Yeah.
doing? This sucks. Oh yeah, I was not happy. Yeah, no, not happy.
Yeah, yeah. I will say if we're looking at comparisons to the Kanye albums, it is pretty bad relative to like a Donda or a Life of Pablo or what's the other one that I'm just blanking on right now? Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Mhm.
I like, you know, if you're looking at those things, I do think they have much stronger features.
Right.
For me, this category was more relative to the album.
Mhm.
And when Kanye is interpolating Roxanne by the Police, and he's like, like I thought they sounded a lot better than most of what else was on the album. I think Northwest was pretty unique and honestly like sounded way better than I expected her portion to sound. And I love all the memes that are like Adonis Graham is, Drake forcing Adonis Graham back into the booth after hearing
Yeah,
Northwest's
literally.
verse. And like I think those are pretty funny. Um I honestly didn't hate the Trav or Cardi sounds, even though I think they both are capable of much better, and I've heard them do much better.
Yeah.
Um, Freddie Gibbs, I'll agree with you. I think in terms of performance and lyricism, I think was one of the best parts of the album. Um, but honestly, another one that uh, surprised me with how much I enjoyed was Quavo on
Really?
I can't remember what song he was on because yeah, I didn't really listen to his lyrics all that much because I
Mm.
don't really go to Quavo for the lyricism all that much.
Yeah.
I just thought his stylistic sound was a unique complement to what Ty Dolla and Kanye
Mhm.
were doing on that particular song. Um, so I just think in terms of style, I don't remember the last time he's collabed with either of these two artists.
Yeah.
If it's been recent, then I'll be, embarrassing myself with that. But anyways, I just thought he sounded unique and complimentary to what they were doing on
Yeah.
that particular track. YG was another one that I didn't hate on there, and so I gave it a 7. So
Mm.
I thought it was pretty solid.
I'll give you the Quavo one. um just because I totally forgot Quavo was even on it. I do think that
Yeah.
he meshed really well vocally with both the track and both Kanye and Ty Dolla Sign. But like I said earlier, I read every single lyric. So the lyrics sucked, even though I know he's not a lyricist like that,
Yeah.
and that's not what I go to Quavo for. It
Mm-hmm.
still, kind of brought his performance down a little bit when I just think the lyrics are absolutely trash. But he sounded great, he sounded
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you there. Let's go into our last main category here, the replay value from this thing. Um, I will say in I gave it 2 listens, and the first one was more of a like, let me get a taste of what's on here. And
Yeah.
then the second one was kind of more my like, let's actually get into the content. And I don't know what it's gonna say about myself because when you listen to the content, you're like, this is kind of garbage.
Yeah.
But honestly, in my listen, I got a lot more replay value out of it than I did the first time.
Wow.
And I think it was just that there was more elements that I think there was more elements that I picked up on, like, okay, this has some cool production, or like Quavo's a cool complimentary voice here, or Kanye sounds nice on this outro. And it was
Mhm.
more of those kinds of things than like, this is a great song. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, like I could see myself maybe listening to it for this aspect or that aspect in the future.
Mhm.
Um, so I do think there's a couple songs worth coming back to potentially, but honestly, it does feel very clear to me that it's the weakest Kanye album and the weakest Kanye track list to me,
Mhm.
which I don't really know is that hot of a take, even if you're a Kanye fan, because your options are kind of like Donda's pretty bloated, so there's a lot of forgettable tracks on there. but you got a lot of classics like Moon and Jail
Absolutely.
and, Hurricane and all these other cool classic tracks. And then like you got Jesus is King is another one that people are like, doesn't really feel all that finished. I vibe a lot with some of
Yeah.
what's on Jesus is King, just on a personal level. I think it's kind of cool and unique in a different lane for him.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like this is all that hot of a take that it's his worst track list. But for me, the replay value was a 5 out of 10.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's because I would say half the songs are replayable, but I think there's enough unique elements, particularly like the JPEG production on the track, a couple of Kanye or Ty Dolla's vocal moments,
Yeah.
the Quavo feature, the Freddie Gibbs feature, and then there's one or two songs as a whole that I'm like, this is actually decent. Like I could listen to this.
Yeah.
So it was a 5 out of 10 on the replay for me.
See, I'm a little bit more simple when it comes to defining replay for me, like what makes a song replayable. Um for me, it's like I'll get this feeling where I'm like, man, like do I love this song? Like, am I gonna download this song? And if I'm on like the edge, like, oh, I could do it, but like I don't know. Like, okay, that at that point I know it's at least replayable. Like I'll probably come back. Or if it's like decent, like instrumentally and like feature wise, but there are some lyrics in there that just pop off, and I'm like, okay, like this is cool. Like I'll download it, and that's replay for me. But other than that, like that's really my only thing. Like if it sounds good and if I'm like kind of blown away at certain aspects or areas, then what I'm trying to say is this album sucks. I gave it a 2. There were only like really 2 parts of this album where I was like, "Oh shoot, this is cool." Okay, 3. One being the Freddie Gibbs feature, but that song just sucked altogether. But the intro I thought sounded beautiful. I thought it was a great start. Kind of catfished me. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, here we go. Like I'm ready for this. But then the other one that I wish was was all the way around amazing was Beg Forgiveness, because I thought the entirety of the beginning was um beautiful. I thought I don't even know who the heck is on that, but whoever's singing the first bit of it killed it. I loved the vocals. I loved the mixing, and the instrumental itself is great. But then it just kind of falls off like once Kanye starts hopping in there, and I'm just like, okay. And then you like listen to the entire song, and it's a lot of just repeat of the exact same lyrics, and then it's like, okay, well now this song is ruined, and I don't care for it anymore. So I gave it a 2. I thought it sucked. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot my mic was up. You can hear me now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was Beg Forgiveness. That
Yeah.
that song it cut out just a little bit. Okay, yeah. I agree with you there. Yeah, this album was weird for me because I'm normally like you, where I'm like, it's either I'm coming back to the song or I'm not.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, it was one of the most disappointing parts of the album. But I was like, there's elements of this that I think are really cool or unique. Like this song has cool production. This song
Yeah.
has a cool intro. This song has a cool feature. But I'm like, as a whole, I don't really love this song enough to come back to it. I think there's one or two that I would listen to.
Mhm.
Um, but it was weird because I was like, there's good elements, but the rest of this song is pretty garbage.
Right.
So overall, the math for me came out to as a whole the album being a 5 out of 10, and I think it's apt. I think it's a fine description of what I feel about this album.
So I did the math 3 times because I thought I did it wrong, but it came out as a 2 out of 10 for me.
How did it come out as a 2 out of 10?
I don't know, but it came out as a 2.
Wait, read me your
Actually, I
categories
think I
again.
did it wrong. Hold on. I'm just gonna do the math real quick again. Hold on. This
I
is
was I was astonished.
I'm a college dropout. What can I say? Okay. Okay. It's a 4.8.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4.
I was like, your lowest category was a 2. How did you get it down to that much? But yeah, like 4 to 5 out of 10
Yeah.
seems like a fair representation, I think.
Yeah.
And honestly, what I feel like this shows is, for me, a 5 out of 10 is like the definition of mid. Like,
Right.
it's completely middle of the pack, literally a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, I do feel like that's true musically on this project, because it has some decent moments, some decent concepts, some decent like direction that a song is, um, good elements, but as a whole, it just is not a
Yeah.
very good body of work.
Agreed.
Um, and what I think it speaks to in Kanye's discography is, this is by far, I think, the worst Kanye album.
Oh yeah.
Like, pretty easily to me.
Yeah.
Um, and that, yeah, it's interesting just because it's still a 5 out of 10. It's not like a 2 or a 1 for me, or a 0.
Yeah.
Um, like, we just gave Lil Uzi a 4 last year in our review of his,
Yeah.
and like, that's an interesting thought now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah,
because I
no,
don't know
me
how.
too. I I'm not gonna lie,
Granted, the little,
I might boost
yeah,
Uzi a little bit.
I might as well, but like, the fact that Uzi had like dadgum near 30 songs and I kept like 4 is,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's gonna take some thinking now that I've thought of
Right.
that comparison. But um, what are your best, worst, and most underrated tracks, if you were able to pick a couple out?
So I would say the best one in my opinion was the intro. I thought Stars was a great way to start off the album. And like I said earlier, I just think it's all the way around the best track. There's I don't see a flaw in it. Then again, it's the intro, it's a lot shorter and there's not really any sustenance within it. It's just whatever. But I still give it a
Yeah.
stars. I do think the most underrated is Beg Forgiveness. Um, Either that one or I don't know what it's actually called, but the one with Freddie Gibbs. But only because of Freddie Gibbs. I really think he just went nuts for no reason.
Yeah, carried.
Yeah. But then the worst one would probably be Hood Rat, either Hood Rat or F some.
Wow,
Yeah. I hated it. I would put
crazy.
what's it called? I would put Paid in there if I didn't vibe with the instrumental so much. That
Okay.
instrumental's so groovy. Oh, yeah, that was a nice little beat. But yeah,
Oh, the Freddie Gibbs track is back to me. I
oh,
always forget that. And honestly, that's not a bad pick, because Ty Dolla Sign sounds great.
mhm.
Freddie Gibbs sounds great. It's the sample and the Kanye portions that are
Yeah,
garbage.
right.
Um, but that's crazy to me. So the best to me was Talking, the Northwest song.
Mm,
Um, and I think the North intro is a little long for my
yeah,
liking, though I do think she sounds fine enough that like I don't get annoyed listening to it.
right.
But mostly I just think Kanye sounds great vocally on the outro, and I think Ty Dolla Sign has a solid verse on the back half. It was like just the thing that it was the song as a whole that I could complain the least about, I would
Yeah.
say. Um, I thought far and away Paid was the worst track. It might be the worst Kanye song I've ever heard in my life. It's, oh my gosh, it was so annoying and so bad. The instrumental's fine. I don't really have gripes with it,
Right.
but in terms of artist performance, Ty Dolla Sign has the stronger performance, and it's so annoying. It,
Yeah.
it is so annoying to
Yeah,
me.
no, I agree.
Um, and crazy enough, Hood Rat was my most underrated song.
Wow.
This was like one of 2 or 3 songs that I was like, I would actually listen to this. Feel like there was anything that stood out as like all that annoying to me. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it needs another listen, but just for me, I was like, this one's actually decent.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. We do have different music tastes, so maybe to each their own.
Right.
But maybe it does need another listen. And I was just trying to find an original answer. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe I was just hateful.
Well, and maybe we listen to Kanye for an hour and a half, and just like our minds have lost all their brain cells. That could also be the fact, and neither one of us is right on any of
That's a good
these
point.
things. It might be the reality, unfortunately.
I might have to agree with you there. Okay.
Yeah. So in general, I mean, I'll wrap up all of my thoughts just by saying I think the it's unreviewable, it's utter garbage, it's trash crowd is either speaking relative to Kanye's discography, because I don't think it's like the worst album I've ever heard by any
Right.
stretch. Um, but also the hardcore Kanye cult fans that are like, he's done it again. No, no, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
It is pretty bad.
it's not very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. I've said everything I need to say.
Yeah, I definitely think the people that are super hyped about this album, I think sit down, maybe rethink a couple things. Is this actually
Yeah.
good music? Because the answer is no. Um, but I mean, hey, we reviewed it, so that's already false. It's reviewable. It just
Yeah.
isn't very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I
yeah,
agree.
but that's really it. It's like
Yeah.
pretty close to the middle.
Well, we've officially most likely angered crazy Kanye fans
Oh
now
yeah.
and the crazy Taylor Swift fans
Yeah.
now. And I love it. I'm really
Oh,
excited about that, to be
it's
completely honest.
it's my favorite thing to now get the people on the internet angered. It's what I
Yeah.
strive for at this point.
I just love that it's like, it's not that serious. Like, we literally do this just because we love music and movies and we love talking about it. And they are literally so fired up, like their lives depend on it. And I
Yeah.
love Ashton, to be completely honest. Like, it's admirable, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I say it's, we've done a lot of content that I've enjoyed doing with the Taylor episode and the Grammy episode, and now this Kanye episode. But I'm stoked to move on to some more wholesome content.
Oh,
Hopefully,
100%. Yeah.
just some more enjoyable. I'm not going to be postponing it until an hour before we have to do the review, because I don't want to listen to it content.
Right.
So um, yeah, we've got some exciting things coming up the next few weeks that I'm
Yeah.
really stoked for. And you know, Kanye fans, you got to settle down. And that's that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kanye haters, just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you
Uh,
can hate him. That's
yeah. you know,
that's fine.
right.
I understand it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Anyways,
this has been fun. It's been
it's
interesting. I'll say that.
it's a good one.
Well,
Anyways,
until next week. Until next week.
right.
It's good to see you.
You too. Enjoy y'all's
All right.
President's Day.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay.